Okay. Thanks for joining me again for Thursday night free coaching. Tonight we're going to talk about record keeping for success, a follow-up from our discussion last week on budgeting. And so record keeping is one of the most important pieces of financial health and well-being for individuals as well as entrepreneurs. And I think more so for entrepreneurs, because when you don't have a good record keeping system, then you lose tax deductions and you make your year end or tax time pretty crazy. So tonight's presentation is a pretty quick glimpse at how to get yourself really in the process of record keeping. And these are really what has made me successful financially over the years and what I've done with a number of small businesses. So I'd like to start with the prerequisites, because in order to have a financial system that works for you, you need to have at least these three things intact. And the first is to make a commitment to weekly planning sessions with yourself. So choose a time during the week where you're going to sit down and do this, and make sure that that's not going to be interrupted. So at least an hour a week of dedicated time. The second piece is having a willingness to separate your cash, your bill pay, and your business accounts, as well as savings account, all separate. So a lot of times I see people have these things all combined, and that can make planning quite difficult. So we're going to talk more in the next webinar about how to separate with accounts, your cash account, your bill pay account, your business account, and your savings account. But a willingness to start to think about how your money moves in and out of your life in these separate areas is really important and valuable. And towards the end, if I have time, I will put some more in there about separating out cash and bill pay accounts, as well as business accounts specifically. And the last important thing is to identify what works for you in order to be successful. So there is a lot of information about bookkeeping and record keeping, and for small businesses and entrepreneurs and individuals out there. And it's not going to work for you if it doesn't work for you. And so it's really important to have that self-awareness of what is actually going to work for you. And so that means knowing if you're a technical type of person, if you're not a technical person, if sitting in a computer is helpful to you, or if keeping a notebook is helpful to you. That is a very important part of being successful. So having that self-awareness and trusting that that's okay, whichever system you use, is really valuable. Okay. And having a hard time getting to the next slide. Here we go. Okay, so the first piece of record keeping is to participate in daily tracking. And this piece can be very overwhelming for people because, who has the time to daily track what they're spending? But this is a really important piece, and especially as you're starting, you can move it to less than daily once you're in the process and in the flow of good record keeping. However, starting with daily tracking is the best way to keep yourself moving forward with good success. And so I have put up 3 examples of ways to do daily tracking. And so this is where knowing yourself is really valuable and important. So right now, with smartphones, there's a number of different support systems that you can use in order to do daily tracking. If you take a look at your app on your phones, your app store, I'm just going to hold it up real quick. and search something like record keeping tracker, expense tracker, small business support, a number of things. You'll get a whole list. I was going to show you, but I'm having a hard time pulling it up and talking at the same time. So you get a whole list of different apps that range from apps that you can purchase for a couple of dollars, under $10, to free apps. And I've seen a couple of good reviews on one called the Good Budget Planner, and one a good review on Receipts by Wave. But this is where you can take a look at the different types of apps that are available, and these will help you when you're in the moment to take the time to just pop it in your phone. So if you're out at the store, you can just pull up your app and put it in. Also, you can take pictures. Receipts by Waves allows you to take a picture of your receipt, which is a great way to, especially for small business people, if you're out and about in the world and you buy coffee with a client, or you pick up a book at a store that is for your business or your professional development, you can take a picture of the receipt, and so that way it's not getting lost in your bag or in your pockets or on your desktop or wherever. Having a digital picture of it will store the record for you. Another really great way, super old school, is to get yourself a small notebook, like similar to a checking account notebook, and just keep track of what happens as it's happening. I worked with a client for about 6 months, helping her organize her personal and business finances, and I was just so impressed. She was, super old school, had her little notebook, and anytime I had a question about what was this expense, she could pull out her notebook and it was right there. And so I like that way, simply for the simplicity of it. Sometimes I think learning a new app or learning new software can be challenging for some of us, and a notebook is a pen and a paper and a notebook, and you can organize the data later. And then I put, in addition to that, there's Excel. So I've seen a lot of people use Excel in their, at home. They'll go home and record their receipts into Excel, where they can separate it by category, whether it's a business expense or a personal expense, and what type of personal expense or what type of business expense. So Excel is certainly a great software to do that in, and to keep your expenses on a regular basis tracked. I have another notebook story. I also worked with an artist, and she had her pocket journal that she would normally carry around with her little colorful pencils, and she was just a master at tracking all of her business expenses right in her little art journal. And so again, that's a good example of figuring out what worked for her, and therefore it was successful, and she was good at it and did it regularly. And then I'm also a big proponent of QuickBooks Online. It's not the cheapest software. It's certainly not free, although they have a new one for QuickBooks for Self-Employed, which is a more affordable version, and I haven't had a chance to look in and see how much it does or how much it doesn't do. But in a quick review of it, it looks like it would at least track your expenses fairly well, and it has an app that can go with it. But I like QuickBooks Online because it comes with a phone app, and it also links to your bank account. So once I set it all up, as soon as I open the software on my phone even, it pulls all of my transactions in right from my bank account, and I can be standing online or waiting in the car or something, and take care of my bookkeeping right there and my record keeping. And so that is very accessible for an ongoing daily type of business tracking. So making the commitment to daily recording what you're spending is really going to make the difference between knowing what you're spending and not knowing what you're spending. The second thing that I think is really important, hang on one second, is weekly cash flow management. And so this is where I talked about in the beginning, the prerequisite of taking an hour a week to sit down with your finances. So you've tracked for a week, and if you missed a day here or there, you can catch it on your weekly sit down with yourself. Make yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and take the time on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, or whatever day works for you, and sit down and again, you can do this on a computer in Excel, or you can do it in a notebook. And I actually meant to have my notebook, but I am an old school, $1.99 Mead notebook girl. So once a week I sit down with my notebook and I list out 3 weeks in advance, and I record what my planned expenses are, what bills are coming up, and what I expect to spend for groceries, on my daily or my weekly, heaven forbid, daily grocery shopping, my weekly grocery shopping trip, or gas in my car. And that allows me to do cash flow management. So it stops late payment fees. It stops, missing payments on things. It stops overdraft. So a lot of times that we have a checking account and we'll write a check and then forget it's out there, and then pay our bills, and then like somebody would take a long time to cash a check, and then it's like, oh, I forgot that I had that check. So once a week I sit down and I write down the page, second day of the month, third day of the month, fourth day of the month, and I identify where I'm going to have income coming in and expenses going out, and just, add and subtract all the way down, so that I know, I know every day what's going to happen. And that is really a tried and true method that anybody that's trying to manage their cash flow is going to do if you don't have a giant cushion to rely on for overdrafting or expenses that are coming up. The second thing about weekly cash flow management that I think is really successful is utilizing online bill payment for paying your bills. So most of us have sorry, I set a timer so I could stay on track tonight. Online banking now, most banks have online bill payment system, and you can set it up to pay every bill that you need to pay. And that gives you a record of what's coming up. So I will look at that, I'll pull that up on my computer, and then fill it out onto my, Mead notebook on my lined paper. And I don't ever have to have a stamp, have an envelope. I take 1 minute to put in my, electricity bill, the address, the account number, and everything like that. And every time I have to pay every bill, that stuff is already in there. So I am a big advocate for utilizing online bill payment systems to really regulate your regular repeat expenses that happen. And then keeping a check on them and as they're happening on a weekly basis. And then the third suggestion that is an old school system of spending cash. So we have often, and this is what I talked about in the prerequisite, is starting to think about cash accounts versus bill pay accounts. So in original financial literacy, they often teach to take the amount of money out that you want to spend on groceries, put it in an envelope, and take the amount of money out that you want to spend on meals and entertainment that week and put it in an envelope, and only use what's in there to pay for what your expenses are. And that's a very basic financial literacy education tip that people have been practicing for a long time. So if that's your style, that's great, and you can do that. And if that's not your style, then what I also recommend is to open up a cash account. So You can have a bank account that you just use for cash expenses that you have your debit card attached to, and then you have a bank account that's just for your bill pay expenses. So this is your electric bill, your mortgage, your rent, your your gas, your car insurance, the things that are going to be repeat payments that you can plan out and know are going to happen. And so once a week, I transfer the amount of money that I know I'm going to spend at the grocery store, or that I'm going to, at groceries, gas, coffee, and, maybe dinner out. That money I will transfer into my cash account. And I know that I use that only for my cash expenses. And so that doesn't impact my bill pay. And it doesn't impact my planned expenses that I have done in my notebook for the week, or actually for 3 weeks out is how I do it. So the weekly cash flow is really, I think, paramount to financially managing your money well, is to take that time with yourself and really write it out, what's coming up, and knowing where you are in your bill pay separate from your cash account, because cash is something that can be fairly fluid and is the kind of thing that can really wreck our budget. Often our regular bills are things that we expect, things that we know are coming and happening. It's really the trip to the grocery store or to get gas, or unplanned expenses that we spend outside of our regular financial requirements that tend to throw our budget off. And so if you have a cash account, you'll know, at any given time how much is in there, and it really makes you stick to it. And then if you spend more of your grocery money on dinner out, then you're not impacting your ability to pay for your mortgage or your electricity or whatever other bill, planned expenses are coming up. Okay. And the last important piece of record keeping on a regular basis is to do a monthly review. And so you want to take a look at all of your tracking and see, are you really meeting what you expected? Or are you spending more? Are you spending less? What are you forgetting to record? And identify the places that can be adjusted so that you can shift your budget. So last week we talked about budgets being fluid, and the ability to take, to start with a budget and what you think is happening, and then move to a budget that's really supporting you and working for you. And so that daily record keeping is where you're going to capture all of that information. And the monthly review is where you're going to make it better for your budget in the long run. Yeah. And this monthly review really is going to take at least 3 months till you really are in a very comfortable place with your budget, especially if you aren't right now and you start this. Then it's going to take, a good 3 months, I think, to get yourself into a place where you feel like you are accurately spending cash and paying your bills and recording them properly, so that you know what your budget really looks like and what it really needs to be. I think that, a lot of times when we set out to do budgeting, we set out and put what we want to happen. And then we get home and we realize that, actually we're spending a lot more on groceries, or, personal care is something that comes up a lot. I see with people, they don't realize how much money they spend taking care of themselves. And these are all things that people need and have to spend. So you just have to adjust your budget to reflect that. But if you haven't been recording that, then you just feel like you're blowing your budget all the time. And that sort of leads you in a place of feeling disempowered rather than empowered to really work with what you actually need. And then also, I think that part of record keeping is the storage of records is really valuable and important. I have seen a number of clients of mine who have, I'll go into their home or their place of business, and they have like records everywhere. There's like, well, I have my this over here and my that over there, and then I have this here, and my other stuff is in the office over there, and that doesn't do anything for your sanity, frankly. So one place to store your records is really valuable and important. And I often recommend that if you're not a avid filer, the kind of person that's going to file all your records in one place and keep them, and there are those people, and that's awesome. Those are gold star platinum record keepers, they're out there. And then there's a lot of other people who just have piles of stuff everywhere. And so I recommend often to get yourselves a nice box or a nice basket, or pick one drawer in your home that you can keep your records in, and on a regular basis, I would say like every 3 months or at least twice a year, go through and sort them out. So all your utility bills are together, all of your cell phone bills are together, all of your receipts for your business are in one envelope. That doesn't have to be done on a weekly basis. Certainly for our busy lives, it's more important to be tracking on a weekly basis than it is to be filing. But if your stuff is all over, then it makes it really hard to answer questions. It makes it really hard to identify problems if there's a problem. And so store in one place all of your records. And also that helps when you have a need to pull up something quick, so storing stuff in one place allows you to know, oh, I know right where that is. So you don't have to go looking in your office or in, on your desk or on your kitchen table or on your countertop or some other place where it may possibly be. So just really quickly, again, that is the end of the slide. I'm going to stop the share for a second and bring myself back. So 3 really important pieces of record keeping are your daily tracking, at least every other day, for a successful record keeping of what you're spending on a regular basis, so that when you look at it at month end, you really know what you did spend and you know where your money went. And then I think most importantly is your weekly cash flow, taking that time for yourself and the commitment to sit down and plan out 3 weeks in advance what bills you have to pay, when is your income coming in, how much money do you need to have in the bank to cover that, can you adjust your bill pay if you need to, because the timing is not coinciding with when you expect to have income, or how much money do you need to put into a cash account so that you have money for groceries or gas or, coffee out, different types of cash expense. So those are very basic record keeping for success, like, bullet points. These things have to happen. We can go more into detail in another webinar of more in-depth record keeping, bookkeeping type of questions, and I'll take some questions in a minute, but those are the 3 musts. They must happen.